Hello, welcome to the channel Wise Stories. Enjoy watching.
Don't butt into the conversation of your elders. My husband snapped at me while he and his mother discussed selling my country house. I quietly stepped out onto the balcony and dialed one number, and 7 minutes later I heard a panicked shout, "Sweetheart, we're family, you wouldn't actually turn on me and Mom." Esperanza stood by the gate, listening to the familiar creak of its old hinges. The sound was comforting, the same one etched into her memory since childhood, when she came here for summer holidays at her grandmother's. The house looked exactly as it had 20 years ago. Sturdy, low, with a sloped roof and a wide porch. The paint on the shutters was peeling, but it didn't spoil anything. If anything, it added a warm, lived-in charm. She walked through the gate, stepped onto the path fringed with overgrown grass, and drew a deep breath. It smelled of apples. The orchard stretched to the left of the house, its old trees heavy with fruit, branches bowed under the weight. Her grandmother had always been proud of that orchard. She planted every tree herself, watered them, pruned them, talked to them as if they were alive. "An apple tree needs tenderness," she would say, stroking the rough bark. Esperanza stopped at the porch and ran her hand along the railing. The wood was warm from the sun, smooth from time and countless touches. This was where she had learned to read, sitting on these steps with a thick book on her lap. This was where she drank tea with the homemade jam her grandmother sealed into giant jars. This was where she cried at 14 when her heart was first broken, and her grandmother stroked her hair and told her, "It will pass, darling, everything passes. Only what's true remains." The house was true. When her grandmother died 3 years ago, Esperanza hadn't come here right away. She was afraid it would hurt too much. But the will was clear. The house and the land went to her granddaughter, the only one. Esperanza's parents lived in the city in their own apartment and had no claims. "It's yours," her mother said. "Your grandmother wanted you to keep this place. She knew you loved it just as she did." And Esperanza did keep it. She came on weekends, cleaned, aired out the rooms, watered the flowers by the porch. The house seemed to wait for her, never resisting, never falling apart out of spite. It lived its quiet life, faithful in its own gentle way. After she married Patricio, they spent their first summer here together. Or rather, not alone. Remedios, Patricio's mother, invited herself. "A country house is wonderful," she said a week before the trip. "I really need a break from the city's chaos, and I'd like to get acquainted with your little family nest." Esperanza didn't object. After all, a mother-in-law had a right to see the place where they planned to spend time. Remedios arrived with 2 suitcases and a box of French cosmetics. She stepped out of the car with dignified calm, gave the house, gate, orchard, and path a long, appraising look. Esperanza felt it immediately. Remedios wasn't just looking, she was assessing, calculating. "Not bad," Remedios said, climbing the porch. "Large lot, solid house. Convenient location, 40 minutes from the city, which is valuable these days. Mature orchard, producing well. If you refresh the facade, you could sell it at a very good markup." Esperanza froze on the steps, keys clenched in her hand. "Sell?" she repeated carefully. "Well, in the future," the mother-in-law replied lightly, stepping into the house. "I'm a realtor, dear. I have a professional habit of evaluating properties. Don't mind me." Patricio lugged the suitcases behind her, wearing an apologetic smile. "Mom is always like that," he whispered once Remedios disappeared into a room. "She's worked with houses all her life. It's hard for her to switch off." Esperanza nodded, though something tightened inside her. The words clung like a splinter. "Sell at a good markup. No cozy house, no it smells like apples here, no you can feel a kind soul lived here. Just location, markup, prospects." She chalked her unease up to nerves. People say things. Maybe it really was just professional habit. But the next day, Remedios brought it up again. They were sitting on the veranda, drinking tea. The mother-in-law spread butter on her bread and looked at the orchard. "You know, Esperanza," she began gently, "a young couple can't manage a place like this. A house needs constant care. The orchard needs work. It gets cold in winter, heating is expensive. You're not planning to live here year-round, are you?" "Of course not," Esperanza answered, "but I don't want to part with the house. It's my grandmother's memory." "Memory, yes, that's wonderful." Remedios nodded. "But life is practical. You and Patricio are young, you need an apartment closer to the center. You could sell the country house and invest in something more suitable. I can help with the valuation, with finding a buyer. I have connections." "Mom, come on," Patricio interrupted, though his tone was more conciliatory than firm. "Esperanza will decide when she's ready." I'm just being honest, Remedios shrugged. I don't want you two to overextend yourselves. A city apartment and a country house is a lot. Esperanza stayed silent. She didn't want to snap, not so early in a relationship. She sipped her tea and changed the subject. But Remedios didn't let up. The following day she said the house was old, the roof would need replacing soon, the foundation probably required reinforcement. All of that is expensive, dear, exhausting. Isn't it better to sell while it's still in good condition? Esperanza listened, nodded, and felt the tension coil tighter. Every day brought a new argument. Repair costs, travel inconvenience, stories of acquaintances who sold their country houses and were now blissful in renovated city apartments. Patricio kept quiet. Sometimes he'd say, well, Mom isn't entirely wrong, but then quickly added, still, it's Esperanza's decision. Neutral on the surface, even supportive. But she sensed he agreed with his mother and just didn't want conflict. By the end of that week the three of them spent together, Esperanza was exhausted. She loved the house. Every corner, every creak of the floorboards, every crack in the walls. But Remedios' atmosphere weighed on her. The mother-in-law seemed to envelop the place with her presence, measuring, calculating. She wasn't rude or loud. On the contrary, she was soft, almost caring. But every phrase carried a goal, convinced the daughter-in-law the house was a burden better abandoned. Esperanza tried to speak with Patricio alone. Your mother keeps bringing up selling, she told him one evening as they sat in the orchard while Remedios was in the city shopping. I don't like it. The house is mine. I'm not selling it. Don't take it to heart. Patricio waved it off. She's just worried about us. Thinks it would be better. Better for whom? For us, of course. She wants things to be easy for us. Patricio, this is my house. I'm comfortable here. I don't want to sell it. All right, all right. He raised his hands in a placating gesture. No one's selling anything. Mom talks, you just don't pay attention. But how could she, when every meal circled back to real estate, prices, prospects? Remedios probed constantly, looking for a crack. One day she brought up children. You're planning to have them, aren't you? She asked, spooning salad onto her plate. When a baby comes, you'll need space. A good apartment, a good school nearby. And what's here? Orchard, forest, mosquitoes. Kids these days grow up in cities. Esperanza tightened her grip on her fork until her knuckles turned white. I grew up here, she said evenly. And look at me. I'm fine. Times were different back then, her mother-in-law smirked. Things work differently now. Esperanza rose from the table without finishing her dinner. She walked out into the garden and sat on the old bench beneath the apple tree. She had once sat here reading, dreaming, inventing her future life. And that future had always included this house. Quiet, steady, smelling of apples and freshly cut grass. She didn't understand why Remedios was being so persistent. The woman didn't seem short on money. She worked as a realtor, and a successful one at that, with connections, steady clients, and her own two-bedroom apartment in a respectable neighborhood. Why would she want someone else's house? Why all these conversations? Patricio followed her outside and sat beside her. Don't be angry, he pleaded. Mom is just trying to help. Patricio, she wants me to sell the house. My house, the one my grandmother left me. She doesn't want you to sell it. She's just offering an option. Every day. 3 times a day. She's just energetic. She thinks she's helping. I don't need that kind of help. Patricio sighed and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Just hold on a couple more days. She'll leave, and everything will calm down. And indeed, Remedios left 3 days later. She said warm goodbyes, kissed her daughter-in-law on both cheeks, and promised to visit again. Esperanza smiled politely and secretly exhaled in relief when the mother-in-law's car disappeared around the corner. The house seemed to come alive after she left. It felt quieter, roomier, easier to breathe. She and Patricio spent the rest of the weekend together. They walked through the woods, picked mushrooms, and in the evening sat on the veranda watching the sunset. He didn't bring up the sale anymore, and Esperanza thought the subject was finally closed. But she was wrong. 2 weeks later, Remedios called. Her voice was brisk and businesslike. Esperanza, darling, I've been thinking. I know some people who are looking for a house in your area. Good people, financially stable. Maybe you could meet them, just to talk? Remedios, I'm not selling the house, Esperanza said firmly. Yes, I understand. Just a meeting. You might change your mind. They're ready to offer a very good price. I won't change my mind. All right, the mother-in-law said conciliatorily, though disappointment slipped through her tone. Just think about it. If anything, I'm always ready to help with the paperwork. You know I'm good at this. After the call, Esperanza told Patricio. She's at it again, she said. She's already found buyers. Look, maybe we should think about it. Patricio spoke carefully, as if afraid of her reaction. Just as an option. Meet the people, hear what they offer. Maybe the price really is good, and we could buy something better. Esperanza stared at him silently. A cold confusion spread through her chest. Better than what? She asked quietly. Well, more convenient, closer to the city, already renovated. Patricio, this is my grandmother's house. I know, but it's just a building. The memories are in your heart, not in the walls. Esperanza turned away. She could have snapped something sharp, but what was the point? He didn't understand. To him, the house really was just a structure. 4 walls, a roof, a patch of land. To her, it was far more. A piece of herself. A place where she felt safe, where traces of her grandmother still lived, her voice, her smell, her love. But Patricio didn't see that, and it seemed he wasn't even trying. They didn't fight then, but something cracked between them. A thin fracture, almost invisible, but real. Remedios didn't call for several weeks. Esperanza hoped the woman had finally dropped the idea. They lived their ordinary life. Work, home, weekends at the country house. Patricio was affectionate, attentive, and didn't bring up the sale. It seemed everything had returned to normal. But one evening Esperanza overheard her husband talking on the phone in the kitchen. Yes, Mom, I know. She's stubborn. She needs time. I'll try talking to her again. Of course I know what you need. All right, let's meet this weekend and discuss it. Esperanza froze in the hallway. Her heart thudded, heavy and unpleasant. She went back to the bedroom, lay down, and stared at the ceiling. Patricio came in a few minutes later, smiled, and kissed her forehead. Going to sleep? Yeah, probably. He lay beside her and hugged her. She didn't pull away, but inside everything chilled over. I'll try talking to her again. So there had already been conversations, meaning he and his mother had been discussing the sale behind her back, meaning these weren't random comments from her mother-in-law. This was a plan, crafted, deliberate. Esperanza closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Sleep did not come. In the morning she woke with a heavy head and a sticky sense of dread. Patricio had already left for work, leaving a note on the fridge. I'll be back late. Meeting. Love you. She crumpled the note and dropped it into the trash. All day she attempted to work, but her mind kept circling back to the conversation. I'll try talking to her again. What did that mean? How long had they been planning? And most importantly, why did Remedios want this house so badly? That evening Esperanza called her mother. Mom, did Patricio's mother ever take an interest in our house? Before the wedding, I mean. No, I don't think so. Why? What happened? Nothing. Just asking. Esperanza, you're hiding something. Esperanza sighed and told her everything. The first summer, the constant pressure, the phone call about buyers, the conversation she overheard. Her mother paused for a few seconds. Listen, maybe she really does have money problems? Remember Soledad Vasquez told me she saw your mother-in-law at that real estate agency? And she mentioned something about issues there, maybe with clients. I don't know the details, but something like that. What issues? I'm not sure. Soledad overheard something about a bad deal. Maybe asked Patricio? Esperanza thanked her mother and hung up. Asking Patricio was pointless. He would defend his mother, claim everything was fine, that she was worrying over nothing. But curiosity gnawed. The next day Esperanza called Soledad Vasquez. They'd studied together at university and rarely met since, but stayed connected on social media. Soledad, hi. You once mentioned the real estate agency where my mother-in-law works, remember? Oh, yes, Soledad replied cautiously. I went there because I wanted to rent an apartment. Why? I'm just curious. My mom said you heard something about problems. Well, I don't know how true it is. Soledad lowered her voice, as if afraid someone might overhear. One of the managers mentioned that one of the realtors had serious trouble with a client. Apparently she advised them to invest in some project, and the project turned out sketchy. The client lost a lot of money and is threatening to sue. I don't know if it's your mother-in-law. Might just be a coincidence. Any more details? No, I didn't ask. I didn't care, honestly. But I can try to find out. No need, thanks. I was just curious. Esperanza hung up and thought. So maybe Remedios really did have problems. Serious ones. And the house looked like a lifeline. 3 days later the mother-in-law appeared again. Saturday morning. Esperanza was home alone. Patricio had gone to the gym. When the doorbell rang, she thought he'd forgotten his keys. But at the door stood Remedios with a bag of pastries and a radiant smile. Esperanza, dear, I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by. Am I interrupting? No, of course not. Come in. The mother-in-law walked into the kitchen, arranged the pastries on a plate, sat down. Patricio's not here? At the gym. Good. Then we can chat woman to woman. As Esperanza poured tea, she felt her insides tighten. Woman to woman meant another attempt. Remedios chatted for a few minutes about the weather, traffic, how strange autumn felt this year. Then, as if casually, she shifted to the real topic. Esperanza, I want to speak openly with you. You're a smart, understanding girl. I'm asking you not as a mother-in-law, but as someone in a difficult situation. Esperanza stayed silent, holding her cup. I have problems at work, Remedios went on, her voice trembling. Serious ones. I advised a client to invest in a project that seemed reliable. The company looked solid, great reviews. But it went under. The client lost a lot of money, and now they're demanding compensation. They're threatening to sue. If it comes to court, I could lose my license, my job, everything. Esperanza watched her in silence. Remedios truly looked tense, shadows under her eyes, hands trembling slightly. I need a sum to settle this, her mother-in-law said more quietly. Not enormous, but significant. I don't have that kind of money. I can't sell my apartment. I'd have nowhere to live. Patricio can't help. You two are just starting out. You have a mortgage. The only option is your house. Esperanza set her cup on the table. Remedios, this is my house. I'm not going to sell it. I understand it's important to you, her mother-in-law spoke quickly, almost pleading. But it's only a country house. You can buy another one. Better, newer, more comfortable. And without that money I'm done for. You don't want your husband's mother ending up on the street, do you? You're exaggerating. No, dear, I'm not. If the client takes me to court, I'll be ordered to pay damages. I don't have that kind of money. I'll have to sell my apartment. I'll be left with nothing. Patricio will worry. It will affect your family. Do you really want that to happen? Esperanza felt a dull irritation rising inside her. Remedios, your problems are your problems. I'm sorry for you, but the house is mine, and my grandmother left it to me. I can't sell it. Can't or won't. Her mother-in-law's voice turned colder. Both. Remedios leaned back in her chair and looked at her daughter-in-law with a long, measuring stare. You know, Esperanza, I thought you were more compassionate. Family means mutual support. When one person has problems, the others should help. And you're walling yourself off from us. I'm not walling myself off. I just don't want to lose a house that means a lot to me. More than family? This isn't a choice between a house and a family. Oh, but it is. Her mother-in-law stood up and grabbed her bag. Patricio will understand my situation. He always understands. And you think about whether that country house is worth ruining your relationship with us. She left without finishing her tea. Esperanza stayed at the kitchen table, staring out the window. Inside, everything was bubbling. Her mother-in-law was trying to manipulate her, guilt-trip her, frighten her with consequences. And judging by her last words, Patricio already knew, which meant they were acting together. When her husband came back from the gym, Esperanza met him with a blunt question. Did you know your mother has problems at work? Patricio froze in the doorway, halfway through taking off his sneakers. Who told you? She came over, told me everything, and asked me to sell the house to help her. Patricio sighed, went into the kitchen, and sat at the table. I wanted to tell you myself, I just didn't know how to start. When did you find out? About 2 months ago. Mom asked me not to tell anyone, she was ashamed. But things haven't improved, they've only gotten worse. And you decided that we should sell my house to save her? I didn't decide. Patricio rubbed his face with his palms. But I thought about it. Esperanza, she's my mother. I can't just stand by and watch her sink. That's her problem, Patricio. She's an adult. She chose to advise her client to make a bad investment. Let her deal with it. She's not at fault. They lied to her too, gave her forged documents. She's a victim herself. Then she should go to the police, file a complaint about the scammers. She tried. It's complicated. There's no evidence. The company has already closed. Lawyers say chances are slim. And the client is pressuring her, demanding money, threatening court. If it goes to trial, Mom will have to pay compensation. She doesn't have that money. I don't have it either. But there's the house. Esperanza stood and walked to the window. It's not just a house, Patricio. It's memory. It's my place. I'm not giving it up. You're only thinking about yourself. Her husband's voice turned harsher. My mother might end up on the street, and you're clinging to some memories. Some memories? Esperanza turned. This is my grandmother's house, the place where I grew up. Do you really not understand? I understand that my mother is more important than old boards and apple trees. For you, maybe. For me, no. Patricio paled. So you're refusing to help me? I'm refusing to sell my house. If you want to help your mother, find another way. What way? I don't have that kind of money. Then let her find her own solution. Maybe she can take a loan. Maybe negotiate with the client for a payment plan. I don't know. But the house is mine, and I won't sign anything. Patricio grabbed his jacket and left, slamming the door. Esperanza stood at the window, fists clenched. Inside, everything was trembling, from hurt, anger, fear. He came back 3 days later. During that time, Remedios called every night, first crying, then attacking. You're ruining my life, she said on the phone. Because of your selfishness, I'll be left with nothing. Patricio is suffering, torn between us. This is your fault, you're destroying our family. Esperanza listened silently, then hung up. But each call drained her dry. Her friend Amparo, whom she'd known since college, invited her for coffee. You look awful, Amparo said when they sat down. What happened? Esperanza told her about the mother-in-law, the house, Patricio. Listen, have you called a lawyer? Amparo asked. Who knows what they're plotting? You need to protect yourself. What lawyer? A family lawyer. Property rights. I know someone, Evaristo. He's good. Want his number? I don't know, Esperanza shrugged. I don't want to escalate things. Esperanza, they've already escalated. Your mother-in-law brought an appraiser, remember? Patricio is discussing selling the house behind your back. You think they'll just back off? Esperanza hesitated. Amparo was right. Remedios didn't look like someone who retreated easily. She pushed and pushed, searching for cracks. Give me the number, Esperanza said. Amparo dictated it. Esperanza saved it but didn't call yet. She still hoped it could be resolved within the family, without outsiders. But the next week, something happened that changed everything. On Thursday, while Esperanza was at work, her neighbor from the country house, Aunt Concepcion, called. Esperanza, dear, some people came to your house. Walked around, took pictures. I asked who they were. They said they were from a real estate agency, doing an appraisal for sale. I asked if you knew. They said of course you knew, your mother-in-law arranged everything. Esperanza squeezed her phone until her fingers hurt. Thank you, Aunt Concepcion, I'll take care of it. She left the office, hands shaking, and called Patricio. He didn't answer. She called Remedios. Hello, Esperanza. The mother-in-law's voice was cheerful, with not a trace of embarrassment. Did you send appraisers to my house? Well, yes, dear, we need to know the real price. The market is unstable, can't afford to miss the right moment. I didn't give permission. Esperanza, don't be so nervous. It's just an appraisal. No one sells anything without your consent. Remedios, listen carefully. I won't sell the house. Ever. Stop these attempts or I'll go to a lawyer. A lawyer? Remedios chuckled. You want to sue your family? Patricio will be delighted. Patricio can decide for himself whose side he's on. He already has, dear. He's on his mother's side, as any normal son should be. Esperanza hung up. Her hands shook, her vision blurred. She went home, locked herself in her room, and dialed the lawyer's number she had saved. The call lasted a long time. He listened carefully, asked several clarifying questions. You see, formally they haven't done anything illegal yet, he said. An appraisal isn't a crime, even if you didn't authorize it. But if they attempt any paperwork, transactions, or powers of attorney without your knowledge, that's fraud. You must stay alert. Don't sign anything they bring. If the situation escalates, call me immediately. I can come and document their actions. And if they forge your signature, that's a criminal offense. An expert will confirm the forgery, and they will be held accountable. But let's not get to that point. Be careful. Esperanza thanked him and hung up. She saved his number under emergency lawyer. Patricio returned late that evening. He looked tired but determined. He sat across from her. We need to talk, he began. Talk. Mom found a buyer. A good price. A quick deal. Esperanza, this is a chance to solve everything at once. Mom will pay off her debt. We'll buy an apartment closer to the center. We'll start a new life. Patricio, I'm not selling the house. Why are you so stubborn? His voice jumped to a shout. It's just a house. 4 walls, and my mother is a living person who needs help. It's my house, my decision. And the answer is no. Patricio stood up and paced the room. Fine, then I'll find a way to help her myself. Without you. What do you mean? Nothing. Forget it. He went into the other room and shut the door. Esperanza sat on the couch, hands clenched. Something cold settled inside her. I'll find a way myself. What did that mean? What way? Would they really dare forge something? She grabbed her phone and messaged Evaristo. The situation is escalating. My husband says he'll find a way to help his mother without me. I'm afraid they might try to forge documents. Evaristo replied a few minutes later. Keep all documents for the house with you, preferably in a safe deposit box. Do not leave them at home, and be ready to call me at any time. Esperanza listened. The next day she collected all the papers, property certificates, the will, registry extracts, put them in a folder, and took them to the bank, renting a safe deposit box in her name. Patricio noticed the disappearance that evening. He was digging through the closet for something, then asked, "Where are the documents for the house?" "In a safe place." "Where exactly?" "That's none of your business." His face darkened. "You don't trust me?" "After everything that's happening, no, I don't." Patricio turned and walked out. The front door slammed. Esperanza was left alone in the apartment, which suddenly felt foreign. The next day Remedios appeared again. Without calling, without warning. She simply opened the door with her key. Patricio had given her a set after the wedding. Esperanza came out of the shower and found her mother-in-law in the kitchen. She was sitting at the table, drinking tea as if she lived there. "Good morning, Esperanza," she said calmly. "I wanted to talk." "How did you get in?" "I have keys. Patricio gave them to me. This is my apartment. I didn't invite you." "Oh, don't be like that. So prickly." Remedios sighed. "We're family. You want to take my house. What kind of family is that?" "I don't want to take it. I want you to help." "Is that really so hard to understand?" "What's hard to understand is why you think you're entitled to my property. Because you're my son's wife. Because family means helping each other. Because you have the means to save me, and you're refusing." Esperanza stayed quiet. She wanted to kick her out but held herself back. "Remedios, I'm not selling the house. Please stop." "And if I don't?" Her mother-in-law smiled a cold smile. "What will you do?" "I'll go to a lawyer. If you try to arrange a sale through deceit, that's a criminal offense." Remedios stood, took her bag. "We'll see," she said, and left. Esperanza locked the door behind her with every lock, leaned against the frame, and exhaled. Everything inside her trembled. That evening she wrote to Amparo, "I think this is heading toward a breakup. I can't live like this anymore." Amparo replied, "Stay strong. You're doing everything right. Don't give in." Patricio didn't come home for 3 nights. Then he returned, packed his things, and said, "I'll stay with Mom until you come to your senses." Esperanza watched him pack clothes into a bag and felt a strange relief. It wouldn't get worse. The bottom had already been reached. "As you wish," she said quietly. Patricio froze, looked at her. "You really want our marriage to fall apart because of a house?" "Our marriage is falling apart not because of the house, Patricio, but because you chose your mother over me." He said nothing, took the bag and left. Esperanza sat by the window for a long time, watching the street. The street lights were already on. The city lived its evening life. And somewhere out there was her house. Quiet, solid, smelling of apples. The house that was waiting for her, and that she would not give to anyone. The May morning was unusually warm. Esperanza woke early, made coffee, and sat by the window with the cup in her hands. Patricio still hadn't returned. It had been a week since he moved to his mother's. He called a couple of times, but the conversations were short, tense. She didn't know if he would come back. He didn't suggest meeting. It was a strange time, heavy and somehow liberating at once. The apartment became quieter, more spacious. Esperanza went to work, came home, cooked herself dinner, watched shows, as if she lived alone. And it didn't frighten her the way she'd expected. It actually calmed her. Remedios hadn't called for almost 10 days. The silence was suspicious. Esperanza understood. Her mother-in-law hadn't given up. She was simply regrouping. Patricio was silent too. But there was tension in that silence, like before a storm. When the sky darkens, the wind dies down, and the air grows thick and heavy. Esperanza sensed something was coming. And she was right. On Wednesday evening Patricio finally called. His voice was unusually soft, almost tender. "Hi. How are you?" "Fine. Listen, I've been thinking. Maybe we should talk?" calmly, without emotions. I miss you. Esperanza tightened her grip on the phone. Something inside her stirred, but she held herself steady. Talk about what? About us, about the family, about how we move forward. Esperanza, I don't want us to separate. You know that, don't you? Patricio, if this is about the house, then. No, he cut her off quickly. Not about the house. Just us. Can I come Saturday? In the morning. We'll have breakfast together. Talk. Esperanza hesitated. Something in his voice made her wary. Too sugary. Too smooth. All right, come. Thank you, honey. See you Saturday. He hung up, and Esperanza sat with the phone in her hands. Worry scratched at her insides. Patricio wasn't the type to surrender easily. If he was calling, wanting to talk, he had a plan. Or his mother had one. She picked up her phone and opened Evaristo's contact. Wrote, my husband wants to come Saturday. Says just to talk. I'm afraid it's a setup. Evaristo replied minutes later, stay alert. Don't sign anything. If anything happens, call immediately. I'll be available. Esperanza put the phone down and tried to calm herself. Maybe she was being too suspicious. Maybe Patricio truly wanted to reconcile. But her intuition whispered, no, not just that. Friday passed in a blur. Esperanza tried to work, but her thoughts kept returning to the coming conversation. In the evening she cleaned the apartment, bought fresh bread and cheese for breakfast. After all, her husband was visiting. She should receive him politely. She went to bed late and couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Tossed and turned, listened to the quiet. The wind whispered outside, a dog barked somewhere far away. The city lived its nighttime life, while she lay there thinking of tomorrow. In the morning Esperanza got up at 7, showered, dressed. She put on jeans and a light gray blouse, nothing special, just comfortable home clothes. She brewed coffee, took the food from the fridge, and set the table. Patricio rang the doorbell at exactly 9. Esperanza opened, and he entered with a bouquet of flowers. White roses, her favorite. Hi, he said softly, offering the bouquet. For you. Thank you. She put the flowers in a vase. Patricio walked into the kitchen and sat at the table. He looked fine, rested, freshly shaved, in a clean shirt. But something in his eyes was faintly tense. How are you? He asked, pouring himself some coffee. Fine. And you? Also fine. I missed you. They ate breakfast almost in silence. Esperanza felt the tension growing. Patricio was waiting for something, choosing his moment. Finally he set down his cup and looked at her seriously. Esperanza, I've thought a lot this week. About us, about family, about the future. I realized I was wrong. I shouldn't have pressured you or tried to force you to sell the house. It's your decision, and I respect it. Esperanza listened silently. The words were right, but something in them rang false. Thank you, she said cautiously. I want us to make peace, to start over, to forget all these fights and resentments. We love each other, don't we? She didn't answer. Patricio reached out and covered her hand with his. Let's try again. I'll come back home, and we'll live like before. Without my mom, without her problems. Just you and me. Esperanza looked at him and saw it clearly. He was lying. Maybe not consciously. Maybe he had convinced himself he meant it. But he was lying. Patricio, and your mother? Her problems haven't gone anywhere. She'll handle it herself. She'll find another way. What way? I don't know. She'll take out a loan, negotiate with the client. It's her issue. Esperanza nodded slowly. He was saying exactly what she wanted to hear, too easily, too smoothly. All right, she said, I need to think. Of course, take your time, just know that I really want to come back. He stood, hugged her, kissed the top of her head. Esperanza remained still, feeling everything inside her tighten into a hard knot. I'll go, Patricio said. Call me when you're ready to talk again. All right. He left, and Esperanza remained standing in the middle of the kitchen. Something was wrong. Everything was wrong. Patricio had given up too quickly, agreed too easily to leave the house alone. That wasn't like him. She grabbed her phone and wrote to Amparo. Patricio came. Said he wants to reconcile and leave me alone about the house. I don't believe him. Amparo replied almost immediately, right not to. He's planning something. Be careful. Esperanza washed the dishes, wiped the table, sat by the window with a cup of tea and tried to sort out her feelings. Did she want Patricio to come back? A month ago the answer would have been yes. Now she didn't know. He had betrayed her, chosen his mother's side, tried to pressure her, manipulate her. Said the house was just a building, that memory lived in the heart, not the walls. He didn't understand, didn't want to understand. Could something like that be forgiven? Could trust return? Esperanza didn't know. The next few days passed quietly. Patricio didn't call. Remedios was silent. Esperanza went to work, met a friend, lived her usual life. But the anxiety didn't fade. She knew the silence was deceptive. On Friday evening, exactly a week after Patricio's visit, her mother called. Esperanza, did you know that Remedios is telling everyone you agreed to sell the house? Esperanza froze with the phone in her hand. What? I ran into Visitation Herrera today, remember her? She used to live in our building. Well, she said she saw your mother-in-law at a real estate agency. Remedios was telling the managers that her daughter-in-law finally agreed to sell, that the deal would happen soon. Visitation was surprised and came to ask me. Mom, I didn't agree to anything. I figured as much. Esperanza, I think they're cooking something up. Be careful. Esperanza hung up and sat down on the couch. Her heart thudded. Remedios was spreading lies. Why? To create the illusion of her consent? To file papers later and claim everything had been agreed? She grabbed her phone and called Evaristo. Evaristo, I have a problem. My mother-in-law is telling people I agreed to sell the house. That's not true. I'm afraid they'll try to pull off a deal without me. Esperanza, you kept the documents in the safe deposit box, right? Yes. Good. Without the originals they can't do anything. But just in case, I'll prepare a written statement for you in which you officially declare you do not consent to any sale. You can distribute it to agencies. Better safe than sorry. Will that help? It will help if this turns into a legal issue. You'll have proof you warned them in advance. And another thing, keep your phone with you at all times. If they show up, if they start demanding anything, call me immediately. I'll come and record their actions. Thank you. Esperanza hung up and walked around the apartment. Inside, everything churned. So Patricio's visit had been a distraction. He'd come, said pretty words, tried to lull her. And meanwhile Remedios was preparing the ground for a sale. They were acting together, planning, discussing, conspiring. Esperanza opened her laptop and wrote a short statement. I, Esperanza Cruz, declare that I do not give consent to the sale of the house located at, and any transaction conducted without my personal presence and signature is illegal. She added the date and printed several copies. The next day she took the copies to 3 major real estate agencies in the area where the house was. Explained briefly, the mother-in-law was trying to sell property that wasn't hers. The managers nodded and promised to check documents carefully. One woman, older, with tired eyes, even sympathized. Oh dear, I know stories like this. Relatives can be worse than enemies. Stay strong. We'll check everything. Don't worry. Esperanza returned home exhausted but feeling she'd done everything she could. Now she could only wait. She didn't have to wait long. On Saturday morning, while she was still asleep, the doorbell rang. She jumped out of bed and looked through the peephole. On the landing stood Remedios. Alone. Esperanza opened the door without undoing the chain. What do you want? Good morning, Esperanza. May I come in? No. Remedios pursed her lips. Oh, honestly, don't be childish. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Oh yes, we do. I heard you took some papers around to agencies, telling people I'm trying to sell your house behind your back. Because you are. That's slander, by the way. I could sue you. Go ahead. Her mother-in-law stepped closer, and Esperanza noticed her face was tense, her eyes hard. You're ruining my reputation. Thanks to you, they'll laugh at me in the agency. Clients will turn away. I'm defending my property. If you don't want trouble, stop trying to sell what doesn't belong to you. Patricio was right, Remedios said with a cold smirk. You're selfish. You only think about yourself. My life is falling apart, and you don't care. Your life is falling apart because of your decisions, Remedios, not because of me. Oh really? Well then, we'll see who comes out on top. She turned and left. Esperanza locked the door with every lock. Her hands were shaking. We'll see who comes out on top. What did that mean? What was she planning? Esperanza pulled out her phone and called Evaristo, recounting the visit. Did she threaten you? The lawyer asked. Not directly, but she said, we'll see who comes out on top. I see. Esperanza, I think they'll move to active steps soon. Be prepared. Keep your phone on you at all times. And if they show up together, if they start pressuring you, call immediately. All right. She hung up and sat on the couch. Everything inside her tightened with dread. Something was going to happen. Soon. Esperanza wasn't wrong. The next Saturday, Early in the morning, the doorbell rang again. She opened the door. On the threshold stood Patricio and Remedios, both serious, composed. "We need to talk," Patricio said. "Let us in, please." Esperanza wanted to refuse, but her husband pushed past her into the apartment, his mother close behind. They walked into the kitchen as if it were their own home. Esperanza stayed in the hallway, fists clenched. "I didn't invite you," she said. "We won't stay long," Remedios replied, pulling some papers from her bag. She spread them out on the table. Esperanza stepped closer and looked. A sales contract. Blank signature fields. A property valuation. Buyer contact information. "What is this?" she asked coldly. "We found an excellent buyer," Patricio said. "A good price, even above market. Esperanza, this is our chance to solve everything at once. Mom pays off her debt, we buy a new apartment, we start over. I'm not selling the house." "Why are you so stubborn?" Patricio raised his voice. "It's just property. For you it's just property. For me it's not." Remedios stood up and came closer. "Esperanza, dear, I know this is hard for you, but think of the family. Patricio is suffering, torn between us. Can't you see how bad he feels? If he feels bad, he can go to a therapist." "Don't be clever," her mother-in-law said sharply. "I didn't come here to argue. I came to settle this. Here's the contract. Sign it, and it will all be over, we'll all be happy." "I'm not signing." "You will." Patricio stepped closer, and something unpleasant flickered in his eyes. "Because it's in the interest of our family." "Our family?" Esperanza gave a short, bitter laugh. "Patricio, we don't have a family anymore. You destroyed it yourself when you took your mother's side. I took the side of justice. You took the side of greed and manipulation." Remedios sat down at the table. She straightened the papers neatly. "All right, enough emotions," she said briskly. "Let's discuss this like adults. Here's the price, here are the conditions. A quick deal, in a week. Money transferred to the account. You get your share, we get ours." "What share?" "The house is entirely mine." "Well, formally yes." Remedios waved a hand dismissively. "But you're married to Patricio. That makes it shared property. The house was bequeathed to me before the marriage. It's my exclusive property. Lawyers could argue that. Let them. I'm not signing anything." Patricio began pacing nervously around the kitchen. "Esperanza, please try to understand. My mother needs the money. Urgently. If she doesn't pay off the debt, they'll ruin her. She can take a loan. They won't give her one. Her credit history is ruined. That's her problem." Patricio went on explaining something to his mother about processing the deal, about powers of attorney, about how everything could be done quickly. They talked as if Esperanza weren't even in the room, as if she weren't the homeowner, the property owner, but a piece of furniture. Esperanza stood there watching them. Her husband, who just a month earlier had sworn he loved her. Her mother-in-law, who arranged documents on her kitchen table as if it were her own territory. Esperanza tried to interrupt, to remind them the house belonged to her and there would be no sale. But Patricio cut her off sharply, without even lifting his eyes from the papers. "Don't butt into adults' conversations." Esperanza froze. The words hit like a slap. He didn't even look at her, just brushed her aside like an annoying fly. Remedios nodded with the air of an insulted queen. "Exactly. Young people have no respect anymore. We're solving a family matter here, and she interferes." Something inside Esperanza snapped, without pain, without screaming. Quietly, cleanly, like a taut thread breaking. She turned and walked out to the balcony, closed the door behind her, took out her phone, dialed Evaristo's number. Her hands were steady, her breathing calm. No hysteria, no tears. Just cold, clear resolve. "Evaristo, they're at my place. My husband and mother-in-law. They're trying to force me to sign a sales contract. They say they'll process the deal quickly through powers of attorney. Can you come?" "I'm on my way. I remember the address. I'll be there in 7 minutes. I'm nearby. Don't sign anything. Stay firm." "I am." Esperanza put the phone in her pocket and remained on the balcony. Below her the city hummed. Cars, people, the usual Saturday rush. Somewhere out there, 40 minutes away, stood her house. The house with the apple orchard, the creaking gate, the porch where she read books as a child. Her house. And she wasn't giving it away. 6 minutes passed. Esperanza returned to the kitchen. Patricio and Remedios were still at the table, talking in low voices. "Are you done?" Esperanza asked. "Not yet," Patricio said, looking up. "Sit down, let's go over the details." There's nothing for me to go over. Don't be childish, Remedios sighed. We're doing this for your own good. For my good, Esperanza echoed with a thin smile. Interesting choice of words. The doorbell rang. Sharp, insistent. Patricio jumped to his feet. Who's that? We'll see. Esperanza went to open the door. A man around 45 stood on the threshold, in a gray suit with a briefcase in hand. Serious face, calm eyes. Evaristo Mendoza? Esperanza asked. Yes. Hello, Esperanza. May I come in? Of course. She led him into the apartment. Patricio stood in the hallway, pale. Who is this? He asked. My lawyer. Remedios rushed out of the kitchen, her face twisting. What lawyer? Good afternoon. Evaristo walked into the kitchen and set his briefcase on the table. Evaristo Mendoza, lawyer specializing in family and property disputes. Esperanza asked me for legal advice regarding attempts to illegally sell her property. Patricio paced back and forth in agitation. What illegal sale? We were just talking. You were discussing a sales contract, powers of attorney, and closing dates. Evaristo took a folder from his briefcase. Without the owner's consent. That is called preparation for fraud. Remedios hastily gathered the papers from the table. It's a misunderstanding, she muttered. We were just talking. No one planned to do anything without Esperanza. A strange kind of conversation. Evaristo opened the folder and spread the documents on the table. Here is the certificate of ownership of the house. Here is the excerpt from the grandmother's will. Here is the registry document confirming exclusive ownership. The house belongs entirely to Esperanza, with no encumbrances and no shared ownership. Any attempt to sell or transfer the property without her written, notarized consent is a criminal offense. The charge is fraud. The penalty is up to 10 years. Patricio sank into a chair, his face ashen. We didn't mean. It's not what? You were discussing executing a deal. You mentioned powers of attorney. I consider that preparation for a crime. And if necessary, I am prepared to testify in court. Remedios stuffed the papers into her bag with trembling hands. This is all nonsense. We were only trying to help. We're family. We weren't going to force anything. Help? Evaristo looked at her coolly. Interesting help, spreading false information about the owner's consent, bringing appraisers without permission, drafting contracts behind her back. That's not help. That's fraud. He took out another document and placed it on the table. Esperanza has written a statement officially declaring that she does not consent to the sale of the house. Copies of this statement have been placed in 3 major real estate agencies in your district. If you attempt to push through a deal, you will be stopped during the document review, and I will file a report with the police for attempted fraud. Patricio looked at the lawyer, then at his wife and his mother. His lips moved, but no words came out. Furthermore, Evaristo continued calmly, if these kinds of conversations happen again, Esperanza has the right to petition the court for a restraining order regarding her property, as well as claim compensation for emotional distress, pressure, and threats. What threats? Remedios flared up. We didn't threaten anyone. The phrase "we'll see who beats whom" was said a week ago. There are witnesses. There have also been repeated calls demanding she sell the house, visits to her apartment without invitation, emotional pressure. All of this is being documented and can be used in court. Remedios grabbed her bag and lunged toward the door. Come on, Patricio, we have nothing to do here. But Patricio sat still. He looked at Esperanza with wide, stunned eyes. Shock, confusion, fear. Esperanza, he began. Leave, Esperanza said quietly. Both of you. Evaristo gathered the documents and placed them in his briefcase. I recommend you don't come here again without an invitation, he said to Remedios. And stop any attempts to sell someone else's property. Otherwise our next meeting will be at the prosecutor's office. Her mother-in-law darted out, heels clattering down the stairs. Patricio slowly got up, shuffled after her. At the doorway he turned back. Esperanza, we didn't mean any harm. Get out, Patricio. He left. Esperanza closed the door, locked every lock, leaned against the frame, and exhaled. Evaristo stood in the hallway with his briefcase. You handled that very well, he said. You called at the right moment. Now they don't stand a chance. Thank you. If you need anything else, call me. I'm always available. He left. Esperanza remained alone in the apartment. The silence was deafening. She went to the kitchen, sat at the table, looked at the spot where Remedios' papers had been. The sales contract, the appraisal, the buyer's contacts. All of it gone with her mother-in-law. Esperanza poured herself some water, drank in slow sips. Her hands weren't shaking. Inside was a strange emptiness, not unpleasant, almost relieving. She picked up her phone. 3 missed calls from Patricio. A string of messages. Esperanza, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for it to go like this. Let's talk. She blocked his number, then texted Amparo, it's done. The lawyer came, they ran. Patricio is no longer my husband. Amparo replied, stay strong, girl. You did great. I'm proud of you. Esperanza put the phone away and sat by the window. Outside, dusk settled slowly. The city lit up. Somewhere out there, 40 minutes away, stood her house. Quiet, solid, smelling of apples. The house she had defended. Patricio came back 10 minutes later. Esperanza heard the door open. He still had his key. Fast footsteps down the hallway, and then he appeared in the kitchen doorway. His face red, hair tousled, breath uneven. He must have run up the stairs. Esperanza. He stepped forward, reaching out his hands. Sweetheart, wait, we need to talk properly. Esperanza sat at the table, holding a cup of cold tea. She looked at him evenly. About what? About everything. Patricio moved closer and sank onto the chair across from her. I know you're angry, you have every right to be, but let's sort this out calmly, without lawyers, without drama. Patricio, you were just sitting in my kitchen discussing with your mother how to sell my house. Without my consent. What is there to sort out? We weren't going to do anything behind your back, he said hotly, waving his hands. We just wanted to show you the options. Explain why it's beneficial. For all of us. Options? Esperanza let out a cold laugh. Patricio, that was a ready-made contract. With a price, terms, buyer contacts. You were discussing powers of attorney. What else would you call that besides an attempt to push a deal through behind my back? That's not what it was. Mom was just being cautious, wanted to be prepared in case you agreed. I didn't agree. I said no 100 times. But you didn't listen. Patricio dragged a hand over his face, shoulders sagging. Esperanza, I'm desperate. My mother could lose everything, you understand? She'll be ruined, out on the street. I can't just watch it happen. And I'm supposed to watch you try to take my house from me? The house my grandmother left me? It's not the same. Why not? Because he fell silent, searching for words, because that's a living person, my mother, and the house is just a building. Esperanza set her cup down carefully. Inside, everything froze over. So to you it's just a building? In a way, yes. Esperanza, I get that it holds memories for you, but it's not a living person. It's walls, a roof, a piece of land. And my mom, she's real. She's suffering. She needs help. And you decided to help her at my expense? Not at your expense. We'd buy another house. Better, more convenient. I don't want another house, Esperanza said quietly but firmly. I want mine. The one I grew up in, where my grandmother lived, where I feel at home. But why can't you meet us halfway? Patricio's voice cracked almost into a shout. Why can't you help the family? Because this isn't helping the family, Patricio. It's sacrificing everything for your mother, who got herself into a shady scheme. It's not my responsibility. She's my mother. And the house is mine, bequeathed to me. Not to us. Not to the family. To me. Patricio jumped up, pacing the kitchen. His hands trembled, his face twisted. So your house is more important than our marriage? Our marriage isn't falling apart because of the house. Esperanza stood and walked to the window. It's falling apart because you chose your mother. You took her side against me. You tried to manipulate me, pressure me, deceive me. I didn't deceive you. You did. You came last week with flowers, saying pretty words about reconciling, and at the same time your mother was spreading rumors that I had agreed to sell. You were acting together, planning everything. Patricio froze in the middle of the kitchen, opened his mouth, closed it, no words. I came just to talk that time, he said finally, quietly. I really wanted to make peace. No, you wanted to lull my vigilance, test how much I'd resist. Then you decided to act directly. Showed up together with ready documents. Thought I'd snap under pressure. We just wanted to solve the problem. At my expense. Without my consent. Patricio sank onto a chair, dropped his head into his hands. What do I do now? He asked dully. How do I help my mom? I don't know. It's not my problem. He raised his head, pleading. Sweetheart, we're a family. You won't abandon us? Me and Mom? He didn't finish. Esperanza looked at him evenly, coldly. No pity, no softness, only exhaustion, emptiness. Pack your things, Patricio. Today. Everything you need. And go. You can't kick me out. This is my apartment too. It's a rental. The lease is in my name, so I can. Esperanza, wait, let's think this through, talk it over. There's nothing to talk about. Leave. He stared at her with huge eyes. Shock, confusion, despair. But Esperanza didn't waver. Leave, Patricio. Now. He got up slowly and shuffled into the bedroom. Esperanza heard him open the closet, take out a bag, and start packing his things. The sounds were dull, muffled, as if coming from far away. 20 minutes later, Patricio came out with 2 bags. He stopped in the hallway and looked at his wife. I'll call you, we'll talk again. Don't call. I'm going to block your number. Esperanza. Leave. He stood there for a few more seconds, then turned and walked out. The door closed softly, almost soundlessly. Esperanza leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. She exhaled slowly, for a long time. Inside there was a strange emptiness. Not pain, not fear. Just empty. She went into the bedroom and lay down on the bed without undressing. She stared at the ceiling. Outside, dusk was falling. The city hummed with its evening sounds. Cars, voices, music from neighboring apartments. Her phone vibrated. A message from Patricio. I'm sorry, I love you. Let's try again. Esperanza blocked the number. Then she blocked Remedios' number as well. She put the phone away. She didn't fall asleep until almost morning. The next day, Sunday, Esperanza woke up with a heavy head and a strange sense of unreality. Everything that had happened felt like a bad dream. But the empty closet in the hallway reminded her, no, not a dream. She made coffee and sat by the window. She thought about what to do next. Get a divorce, of course. No question. But how? Where to go? Where to start? She called Evaristo. Good afternoon, Esperanza. How are you? I'm fine. Patricio left. He packed his things and went to his mother's. I see. Then it's time to prepare the divorce papers. Yes. Can you tell me what I need? Of course. Come to my office tomorrow around 2. We'll discuss everything and draft the petition. If there are no children in common and no property disputes, the process will go quickly. There are no property disputes. The apartment is rented, the furniture is shared, but I don't want it. The house is mine by will. No children. Then in a month you'll be free. Thank you. Esperanza hung up. A month, just a month, and the marriage she had thought sturdy and reliable would officially cease to exist. Strange how fast everything collapses. You build for years, and it comes down in a few weeks. That evening her mother called. Esperanza, what happened? Amparo says you're getting a divorce? Esperanza told her. Briefly, without extra emotion. Her mother listened in silence, sighing now and then. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I thought Patricio was a decent guy. But it seems his mother has completely lost her mind. It's not just his mother. He chose which side to take. You did the right thing not to give in. The house is yours. Period. Grandma wanted it to stay in the family. She left it to you. That means she believed you would keep it. I will keep it, Mom. I know, honey. You're strong. You'll manage. After talking to her mother, she felt lighter. Esperanza took a shower, changed into home clothes, made herself a light dinner, sat down at the table, and suddenly realized that for the first time in months, she felt calm. No one was calling with demands, no one was pressuring her, manipulating her. Silence. Real, clean silence. On Monday, Esperanza went to Evaristo's office. They drafted the divorce petition and prepared all the necessary documents. Evaristo explained the procedure, the timeline, the fine points. Patricio may try to drag out the process, but if you insist on a divorce and there are no property disputes, the court will side with you. In a month to 6 weeks it will be over. And if he tries to contest the right to the house? He can't. The house was bequeathed to you before the marriage. It's your separate property. The spouse has no rights to it. Good. Esperanza left the office with a light heart. She walked down the street, breathing in the fresh spring air. The city lived, buzzed, hurried somewhere. And she hurried with it, into a new life, without Patricio, without Remedios, without their manipulation and pressure. 2 days later the petition was filed with the court. A hearing date was set for the end of the month. Patricio tried calling from unfamiliar numbers. Esperanza didn't answer. Then a message came through a mutual acquaintance. Patricio asks to meet, he wants to talk. Esperanza replied briefly, I don't want to. It's decided. Remedios didn't show up again. But a week later her mother passed along a rumor. The mother-in-law had found a way to cover the debt. She took out a loan secured by her own apartment. Risky, of course, but there was no other way. So she managed without someone else's house. Esperanza listened and shrugged. Let them sort it out themselves. It's no longer my problem. At the end of the month the court hearing took place. Esperanza came with Evaristo. Patricio appeared alone, without a lawyer. He looked rumpled, older, with dark circles under his eyes and a haggard face. The judge asked a few formal questions. Esperanza answered clearly. Yes, I insist on a divorce. No, reconciliation is impossible. There are no property disputes. Patricio was silent. Only when the judge asked if he agreed to the divorce did he pause for a few seconds and then nod. I agree. His voice was dull, lifeless. The judge ruled, the marriage is dissolved. In a month the decision would take legal effect. They left the courtroom. Patricio followed and called out, Esperanza, wait. She stopped and turned. Evaristo stepped aside to give them space to talk. What? I wanted to say. Patricio came closer, speaking quietly, stumbling over his words. I'm sorry. I was wrong. About everything. I shouldn't have pressured you, listened to my mother, tried to sell your house. I'm sorry. Esperanza looked at him in silence. I realized it too late, he went on, when you left, when everything collapsed. I realized what I lost. Not the house, not money for my mother. You. I lost you, and that's my fault. Yes, yours, Esperanza said calmly. You chose your mother, chose her problems, her manipulation. You took her side against me when I was your wife. I know, I'm an idiot. Yes, Patricio tried to smile, but the smile came out crooked, pitiful. Maybe someday we can try again? Esperanza shook her head. No, Patricio, we can't. You broke what was between us, and broken things don't glue back together. But people forgive, they give a second chance. I gave you 100 chances. Every time you came with new demands to sell the house. Every time your mother called and cried into the phone. I explained, I asked, I said no. But you didn't listen. You only listened to her. Patricio lowered his head. I'm sorry. I've already forgiven you, but that doesn't mean I'll come back. She turned and walked away. Evaristo quietly fell and stepped beside her. You did well, he said when they stepped outside. You handled yourself with dignity. Thank you for everything, Evaristo. You helped a lot. Reach out if you need anything. Though I hope you won't. They said goodbye. Esperanza got on a bus and went home. She looked out the window at the city sliding by, bright, springtime, full of life. Trees were leafing out, people walked in light jackets, smiles on their faces. She smiled too, for the first time in a long while. On Saturday Esperanza went to the country house. Alone. She took a commuter bus to the station and then walked the familiar road through the village. The gate creaked in greeting. The house met her with silence and the scent of apples. The garden was already starting to bloom. Esperanza walked around the property, checked the trees, the flower bed, the porch. Everything was in place, intact, untouched. Her house, her grounds, her life. She sat down on the old bench under the apple tree, closed her eyes, and breathed in deeply. It smelled of earth, grass, spring. Somewhere in the distance a bird was singing, and the wind rustled through the branches. Her grandmother would have been pleased. The house had stayed in the family, stayed with her. Esperanza took out her phone and wrote to Amparo, I'm at the country house. Everything's fine. The house is intact, and so am I. The divorce is finalized. Amparo replied at once, I'm proud of you, girl. You did it. Now live for yourself. Esperanza put the phone away and simply sat, listening to the silence. She didn't have to rush anywhere. Didn't have to prove anything to anyone, explain or justify anything. She was free. Free from Patricio, from Remedios, from their demands and manipulation. In the evening she lit the stove, cooked a simple dinner, and sat by the window with a cup of tea. Outside, the daylight faded slowly. The garden sank into dusk, and somewhere in the distance the lights of the neighbors' houses began to appear. Good, quiet, peaceful. The next day Esperanza cleaned the house, dug up the flower beds, trimmed the overgrown bushes. She worked slowly, unhurriedly, enjoying the process. Her hands got dirty with soil, her back ached a little from the unfamiliar strain, but it was a pleasant ache. The ache of real work, of caring for her own place. Her neighbor, Aunt Concepcion, peeked over the fence. Esperanza, are you alone? Patricio didn't come? I'm divorced, Aunt Concepcion. Oh, dear, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up anything painful. What happened? Oh, nothing special. We just didn't get along. Aunt Concepcion shook her head. That's a shame. You two were such a nice couple. But it's all right. You're still young. You'll find someone better. Esperanza smiled but said nothing. She had no intention of looking for anyone new. She just wanted to live for herself for a while, sort out her feelings, her life, understand what she truly wanted. In the evening she returned to the city. The apartment greeted her with emptiness. Patricio had taken his things, but his presence still lingered in little details. Books on the shelf, a mug in the cupboard, a photo on the fridge. Esperanza took the photo down and put it into a box. Then she gathered the rest of Patricio's belongings, the ones he had forgotten or hadn't taken yet. She packed everything neatly. She'd text him, let him know he could pick it up. 2 days later a message arrived from an unknown number, Esperanza. This is Remedios. May I speak with you? Esperanza stared at the screen for a long time. Then she typed a short reply, no. There was no answer. A week passed. Then another. Life settled into a new rhythm. Work, meeting friends, weekends at the country house. Esperanza enrolled in a landscape design course. She had long wanted to learn how to arrange a garden properly. Now she had both the time and the motivation. Her mother visited several times, helped in the garden, drank tea on the veranda. You've changed, dear, she said once. You seem calmer, more confident. Maybe, Esperanza smiled. I just stopped being afraid. Afraid of what? Of being alone. Of losing someone. Turns out being alone isn't so scary. It's actually good. Her mother hugged her tightly. You'll be fine, sweetheart. You're strong. Your grandmother was the same. At the end of May, the court decision went into effect. Esperanza received the certificate of divorce. A simple piece of paper, a stamp, a signature, the end of one story. She put the certificate into the folder with her documents and placed it in the closet. Tomorrow a new story would begin. Without Patricio, without Remedios, without extra burdens. In the evening Esperanza sat on the balcony with a cup of tea and looked at the city. Lights, cars, people in the windows across the way. Life went on, never stopping for a second. Her life went on too. Forward, toward something new. The house had remained hers. Quiet, sturdy, faithful. Just like 30 years ago, when she arrived there as a little girl and her grandmother greeted her on the porch with a wide smile. Her grandmother would have been pleased. Esperanza finished her tea, set the cup on the table, and smiled at her reflection in the dark glass. Everything will be all right.
Hello, welcome to the channel Wise Stories. Enjoy watching.